Alright, so on the third day, I decided to glue this thing together and get the side pieces, the gears in there. I had to form it just a little bit more with a little bit of heat. I started by gluing in these little joints down here, and you can see there's a gap there I'm going to have to fill. This one worked out pretty well. And then when doing the brow, there was a lot of almost force fitting. And that's literally just gluing in little areas. Like I think I started over here. And I just kind of forced it into place until the glue set. And then worked my way into the center and then all the way around. I was originally going to film me working these in. But again, I didn't want this video to be too long. And even though if I sped up the footage, I bet you it'd be boring. But all it really entailed was I had the pieces. They needed to be trimmed down. And then the inside had to be trimmed to fit them. There's a lot of little pieces where it actually was meant to contact and all that stuff. So the only thing I'm not too fond of, like this side came out fine, in my opinion. It's pretty flush. This side, I guess I just didn't trim enough on the inside of it. And at that point, I just got frustrated. And I hate to do this because sometimes you just to get it done, you just do it. But it's a little deeper in here than it should be, so it's kind of tilted inward. I don't know if you could see that, but I guess one of the options is I could just separate it, file the inside of this a little bit more, and then bring it in. But I think it's fine. After weathering and everything, painting, it should look fine. It's just going to be displayed. Another thing I came across where there were some gaps where I could see light shining through on the edges, and I guess that's just the nature of the mold. And let's see, I'll probably post a picture instead, but you can't really see it too well. But I did put a little piece in there, right about there. I cut an extra piece of some of the flashing and just glued it in there to fill up a gap. And I'm probably going to have to go all the way around the inside with some plumber's epoxy, the 2-part putty, and just make sure no light shines through. The inside is going to be painted black anyway. So, you know, it shouldn't shine too much. But, you know, just a little touches here and there just to make it look a little better. I do have to reshape some of the cranium a little bit. And especially back here, it's not too even. So let's get that going. And, yeah, it's coming along nicely. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the hot water from my tap. It gets hot enough to make this pliable. If you look at the top of the skull, you can see there's like a little angle here. I'm going to try to alleviate that. But first I want to get rid of this right here. It's still a little wonky. I want to bring this out and maybe this in slightly. So what we'll do is we'll get the tap going. Get it nice and hot. Now if your tap doesn't get as hot as mine does, I don't know why mine gets this hot. It works out to my advantage. You can use a hairdryer. It just takes a little longer. You could also use a heat gun, but you need to be very, 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 very careful because this is a soft plastic. It's vinyl, and the heat gun will eat it up right away, and then you'll start getting holes, and oh, it's a nightmare. Okay, so that's starting to get a little hot. All right, here we go. So all you basically do is, since I want to remold this area here, I'm just going to heat up the whole thing with this water. And you just want to let it sit on there. Now watch your fingers. Don't burn yourself. And just feel it. Wait for it to get soft. And you'll feel it. There's no doubt about it. See, now it's starting to become real pliable. I'm going to let it heat up just a little bit longer. Maybe get some up in here. Very soft. I'm going to let this get real soft. Now when you're doing something like this, you also want to, you know, keep mind of where your fingers are because you can accidentally create dents for the finger up here by accident. And, you know, you most certainly don't want that. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the water, I'm going to turn it to cold right away. And now I'm just going to kind of form it to where I want it to be. And you can do this in steps. I like to do it in small steps. Okay. Bring the cold water back over. And you have a little bit of time to play with this. Let's see. There we go. Bring that out just slightly. Now just hit it with the cold water, and you'll feel it starting to get rigid. It'll almost do it instantly. Some on the inside. There you have it. Now, obviously, there's still a little bit more reshaping I gotta do, but that's step one, and it looks a whole lot better now. It's a little more symmetrical. And yeah, so let's do the top. Put the water back to hot. And this, I will literally just run the water over the top of it here. This can get real tricky because this is real thin up here. And again, if you're not watching where your hands are, you could put a dent or a bump in it somewhere you don't really want it to be. See, it's so thin it's already starting to get pliable. That's what we want. Okay. So again, remove the water, instantly put it to cold. Kind of get your hand in there. I know you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm pushing up on it. And I'm watching what it's doing. Alright, so let's get the cold water under it. I'm going to apply just a little bit more heat to fix. I put a bump here. That's okay. Again, you can do this over and over again. As long as you don't bust through it, it's not going to hurt anything. Cold water. There's that bump. Push it in just slightly. And there we go. Cool. And there you have it. Alright, so I was able to do a few more passes, and I got the skull, to the best of my abilities. The top is nice and rounded for the most part. And I kept playing with the back here, but I noticed that this is actually jetting out more than this one is. And I think that's more of a mold thing. It was just the sculpt itself. And this piece is just too thick to manipulate. So I'm just going to leave it be. And, I'm happy with the progress so far. Now, with any project like this, you're going to have a few hang-ups. And these three pieces right here are mine. I've done a few dry fits to see how it's going to lay out. And you always want to do that. You just want to do a quick dry run, nothing crazy. It'll do two things. One, it'll tell you how things are going to fit together. And it'll also tell you how you're going to do it. Like in some cases, you could just glue this in and then pop this on and work on it. Or you could put the two together, put this in while it's attached to this, and then force fit it with the glue in the angle in which you want the jaw, and then hold it, and then remove the jaw afterwards, and then do whatever you got to do. But the problem is these three pieces are creating an angle issue, and now I got to work with each one of the three pieces individually, like work a little here, a little here, a little here, a little here. It may take me a couple days. But the idea basically is this fucker has to go in here, like this, okay? And, I'm just going to kind of just put it there. If it'll just stay, for God's sakes. Just stay. Just stay right there. And then this attaches to these hinges here. So what I'm noticing with the dry fit, and I was able to get this to stay in there at that point, that the jaw is coming in a little bit crooked. Now, I am going to have to do some heat treatment to this side here. I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but it's kind of angled out a little bit, whereas this one's a lot more straight. So I'm thinking maybe I'm just going to flatten this piece out, get it in here as symmetrical as I can, as centered as I can, I should say. And then I'm going to fit the jaw into it, pull it out, heat it, mold it, put it back in, and just get the jaw as straight as I can. And I also want it to be open slightly. Not closed and not like, ha 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 ha, But I do want the jaw to be slightly open, and it just gives it more of a menacing grin. The third piece, and this is what's really going to hang me up here, is I got to get this, as I mentioned in the initial video part, in here somehow. So I don't know if I'm going to cut it in certain places and just do it piece by piece. First thing I'm obviously going to have to do is open this up with some heat. and let it sit for a little bit. And then what I'll do is I'll put this in there. And once I get that satisfied, at least it'll be one piece. And then when I manipulate it, it'll all, go into place as one unit. So again, it's going to be putting it together, taking it apart, moving a few things around, putting it back together, and just getting it exactly where I want it. And then maybe once it's all together, I could just do a quick couple little things. But the other problem is I have to remove this from the skull after I got everything where I want it, because it's going to have to be painted separately and then put back together. And, that's just par for the course on these things. But first and foremost, let me get this thing flat. Let me get it in here. I'm going to have to do a lot of filling with 2-part epoxy. But yeah, let's get that going, and hopefully we can start painting on this thing soon. So before I get to putting that in permanently, we need to start thinking about the eyeballs and electronics, because I'm going to have very limited space to work with here. So what I'm thinking about doing is I've already cut the holes in the eyes, just enough for the wires, nothing crazy. Is I'm going to actually attach some plastic tubing in here to bring out for the wiring. I may have to get some extra wire. I don't know how much is actually in there. I haven't busted it open yet, but and the eyeballs are going to have to be painted separately and then put in after. What I'll probably do is just paint the eyeballs. Of course, I'm going to have to drill that out. Assemble all this, make sure it works fine. Then put the LEDs in the eyeballs and then feed it through. And then figure out what I'm going to do from there. So let's get that all started.